Thank you all for checking out this week's episode. Once again, I'm John. If you like what you heard and saw today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and check out our brand new merch store with hats, coffee mugs, t-shirts, other cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Again, thank you all for support. Be safe, and see you next week.
How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spirit Talk, and today we get to welcome the incredible Crystal Brolik Stokes to the show. Crystal spent 11 years in the United States Marine Corps, reaching the rank of sergeant, did 3 tours, 1 in Kuwait, 2 in Iraq. She's also a martial artist, black belt, jiu-jitsu, firearms coach, rifle, pistol, professional football player, professional MMA fighter. Crystal, when it comes to guests on this podcast, you check off probably more than most guests ever been on the show. So thank you for jumping on here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I just want to clarify one thing real quick. It's I was a black belt instructor in the Marine Corps martial arts program. I'm a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. One of the interesting things about this show, I'm good friends with Marcus Torgerson, and he's been on the show, I think 4 times now. And it went from the basic introductory talk to every time he's on now, we just talk about life. And a lot of times him and I will share ideas or stories. And the other day he reached out to me and, hey, you got to have this girl Crystal on. She's perfect for your podcast. She's amazing. Her story is amazing. She's motivational. She's inspirational. And I'm like, sure. Like if Marcus says have a guest on, I'm going to do it. And when I started doing research and reached out to you, I was really blown away by the life you have lived so far and the service you've not only given to this country, but the inspiration to people who are struggling. And so again, thank you for jumping on here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Recently, this other day, there was a incident, and maybe something you could talk about in the martial arts community, specifically jiu-jitsu. Leandro Lo was famous world champion fighter. He was shot and killed after an altercation at a bar or a club or whatever, where the guy he was dealing with pulled the gun out and shot him. And I know you post stuff on there. I know some of my other guests in the martial arts world posted stuff about it. But it's just, for me to see that, not only is it a travesty, but to see how the community of the martial arts, and specifically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kind of rallies around people like that and shows their support for the family and stuff. And it's well, it's a tragedy that you're not going to Monday quarterback that. What should have happened when it did happen, and it's a tragedy that it did.
Undoubtedly. It was, he actually, I saw it from another friend of mine that does jujitsu, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, when did this happen? And so I looked it up, and it was, it's like the end day was today. And I was like, wait a second, he's supposed to be competing on the 12th. And this, it's just, as with anything, when anybody passes, it's kind of a shock. It's surreal. You're like, no, is it not really? No, it can't be. But Leandro Lo was amazing on the mats and off the mats, like just his personality. Everybody that I've met that has like trained with, I never personally got to train with him, but just watching him as a jiu-jitsu practitioner and as an athlete, just the way he carried himself, the way he conducted himself on and off the mats, like the way the interaction and stuff, like he was just inspiring, he's uplifting, and he was an example and stuff. So it really is a travesty that happened.
With your friendship with Cyborg and her taking you under the wing, I've always been fascinated outside the press conferences when they have to sell a fight, some of the drama they manifest, whoever. But after they trade blows and the fight's over, the amount of respect the fighters have for each other. Now, obviously, with your military background, you know what respect is. But when you transition into the MMA world and professional fighting, were you surprised to see that same level of respect given towards fighters?
In a way, once you reach a certain level, I believe, as an athlete in any sport, if you're an elite level, when you're an elite level athlete, there's always going to be a different mindset. And so there is that respect that you give. If somebody beats you or somebody's better than you, then, you have to give them that respect. And then you go back to the drawing board and say, what do I need to do to be the person that they now need to train for, instead of, okay, I need to train for that person. And I think it's just, in the fight world, I think it is given a lot more so than a lot of other sports. As somebody that's done quite a few different things, I do find that in that sport, there's trash talking, and of course personalities conflict, and everything in any sport, anywhere you go. But I think across the board, with that, the respect that is given, it's a genuine respect because you earn it. It's not unlike the military. Yes, there are those people that, they earn your respect, but then there are the ones that are like, I have this rank, you need to respect me. And you're like, no, I respect the rank, but not you. And then there's the ones where you respect the rank as well as the person behind it and stuff. So
right.
It's the same in the MMA world.
Before we go down the rabbit hole of the fighting and the professional football play and stuff like that, I want to back up a little minute. With your upbringing, with your parents in the military, the Marine Corps itself, was there any other option for you besides military? Was there a say, maybe there was another sport or another activity where it's like, what if I get really good at this? Maybe I'll do this instead of military. Or was that always kind of in the back of your mind, your first thought, I want to dress up in the dress blues like my family. I want to do all the stuff. Was there ever another option for you?
Actually, that was my second option. So my original option, I did gymnastics for 20 years, right? So I started when I was 6, and that was my option. My option was to get a scholarship in gymnastics and go and compete. However, my grades in school, I was not guided well. I did not have a good work ethic in school. I struggled, and I was better at gymnastics. So my energy and my focus went into that rather than into schoolwork. My home life was not the greatest. It wasn't the worst, but it was not the greatest as well, in certain areas. So therefore, I tended to go to the gym, and that was my outlet, not my studies. Because studies for me, it was a lot more challenging. There was not as much support in it when as I was growing up, but there was more support from coaches and teammates within the sport. And so I gravitated towards that. Now, I would have had a full ride scholarship to Oregon State University had my grades been good. They were not. So therefore, after high school, I did go, funny story, I walked on to the community college that was there. I walked into the athletic director's office and I said, hey, I ran track in the 6th grade. Can I get a scholarship? All right. And these are the events that I did. And he looked at me and he goes, well, if you run cross country for me, I'll give you a partial scholarship. And I said, okay. I had no idea what cross country was. I didn't understand it. I was like, all right. Oh my goodness. Good God Almighty. When I found out how far we had to run, it was all running and everything. I was like, whoo. And it was the first time I really got challenged outside of gymnastics, because that's all I did. It was a real eye opener to other things. However, it did prepare me for all the running in the Marine Corps, unknowingly. So I did that. I ran cross country. Once again, school took a tank, because I didn't have good study habits in high school. That transferred over to community college. So I decided to go back to gymnastics. I was like, I'll walk on to a team. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that, but I'll figure it out. And in the midst of doing that, my best friend came up and said, hey, you quit gymnastics and I'll quit school, and we'll join the Marine Corps. And I did, however, my youngest brother knew he was going to join. And the only reason the military came into the interview actually was because my best friend at the time, her boyfriend had joined the Navy. So it was in the forefront of her mind, not in my mind. So when she said that, I said, sure, I have nowhere, like, I'm not going anywhere right here. So I'm all in. Like, let's go. I'm ready to go, get out of here and stuff.
Yep.
And then from that moment on, I was all in. So
It is interesting. When it comes to schooling, I know a lot of people like yourself and even myself, where man, I don't want to read this book or do this math problem. And it's like, but when it came to sports or the releasing of physical activity, doing the team stuff, I thought I excelled, and I mean, I actually ran cross country in college and was actually really good at it. But I love the idea of teamwork and exerting myself physically. Mentally, I always found in the classroom I was just restricted. I didn't want to. I wanted to learn and excel and stuff. I cared about, whether it's different parts of history and stuff. And so when it came to that idea of the releasing of the physical aspect of what you're doing, I always find it so interesting that people are able to excel at that. And in turn, you almost go back and re-excel back with the stuff you didn't really excel at before. It kind of helps build up all facets of your life like that.
yes. So well, with school, it's not that I didn't like it and I didn't enjoy it. For me, I have come to find out and having my own daughter, it's the way you're taught. So not everybody is the same. So you can't just sit everybody in a classroom and say, here, memorize this, do this. I'm like, it's difficult to retain certain things, even if you are interested, just, with the way that it's taught. And I didn't have good study habits. I did not. And so I can take all of that and I can use it now with the way that I learn things. I love to read. I love to, when I was younger, I used to write plays. I used to read a lot. And then there was a certain thing that happened in my childhood and it just kind of detoured me away from it. So like I said, when you don't have that support system there, you go to where the support system is. And even though because I'm very tall, I'm 6 foot. So as a gymnast, that's extremely tall. So I still had my challenges and I was like legs and things everywhere. I was gangly, a little tiny thing at first, tall, but, skinny. And so it was a challenge for me, but there was the support that was there. And so now I can look back and I can say, okay, well, this is what I need to do. And this is how I can do this. And I figured out different ways of learning for myself to be able to do stuff. And, I started reading again and doing other things that I hadn't done in a while. And it just, it makes you realize different ways. And plus having my daughter, you just realize different ways of pushing through and okay, now I can be that example, which is one of the reasons I say be the example. And it's not just be the example for my daughter, it's be the example that I needed, be the example that I need, be the example that somebody else may need, just be the example. It encompasses everything and stuff. So I kind of have taken the lack of doing well in school and I can apply it now. However, that being said, if I were to take school again, then now I know, okay, I can only take this class at a time, or I can only do this, because then that way I can focus and I have the fortitude to be able to focus a lot easier now.
When it comes to your relationship with your daughter and you being a mom, what are the similarities and differences between the relationship you had with your mom versus you and your daughter now? Like, is there good things or bad things that you've kind of, as you became a mom and now that you kind of, hey, maybe I should do this, or maybe I try that, or maybe I don't do this? Anything like that you can touch upon?
So there's lots of things. This might sound horrible if she ever hears this. Don't take offense, okay? My mom and I were not the closest. My dad's the one that gave us all of my morals, my values. He was the disciplinary. He's the one that put in the most work. However, my mom is the one that was the affectionate one towards us up to a certain point in our life. And then after that, there just was that affection. There was no physical affection, And every once in a while, you got the verbal affection and stuff like that. So there are lots of things that I have taken that are good. And then there are lots of things that I've taken that were somewhat good, and I just alter them.
Right.
So, like, for instance, we used to get, like, we'd have to do an exercise to get in trouble. You had an exercise of some sort, you got your butt whooped, and then you didn't get to do whatever it is that you wanted to do. Now, I take that and I utilize that same thing. However, I have adjusted it just slightly to where if it warrants her getting her butt whooped, there are differences between when I did and when she did. First, it's never done out of anger. If I need to calm down, I need to calm down. She'll go sit in the corner. She'll do an exercise, something or something. And then I pray about it. And I say, God, how do I discipline her for this the way that you need me to? So that way I don't do any damage. And what should I do? How guide me? Like, how do I do this? And then what we will do is she only gets enough licks, I guess you could call them, to get the point across. So if that happens to be 2, that's it. If it's 5, then that's it. And then I stop. We talk about what it was just briefly, because she's small, so they only retain so much. And then we go over what the Bible says, basically, like, listening and obeying, honor your father and mother, don't steal, don't lie. We just kind of go over it, and then we pray and we ask for forgiveness, and then we say, okay, it's forgotten. We don't bring it up anymore. I don't bring it up to where it's like, remember I told you, or you did this the other day. It's done. You've been forgiven, just like God forgives us. It's been forgiven, and it's done. And then she gets all the hugs, she gets all the love, she gets all the kisses. She can cuddle as long as she wants. And then usually probably within like 2 minutes of that, she's like, hey, can we go do this? And she's fine. She's fine. And she learns her lesson very well. Sometimes, it's just a look. Sometimes it's, we'll be out in public and she'll say something or do something, and I'll point to my waistband because I have a pocket knife, and I'll point to the pocket knife, and she's like, because she knows that I will go cut a switch wherever we're at, and I will take her somewhere, and she will be disciplined. So there's boundaries. She understands, like, you have a choice. There's good choices, bad choices. Good choices come with this, bad choices come with consequences, just as in life. You can make your own choice. I'm not going to force you to do one thing or the other. You have free will, but here are your options. Choose wisely. And I'm going to guide you towards the best choice. And this is why, but you're still going to make the choice. And sometimes she's like, I'm going to see for myself, and you're like, all right, I hope your butt enjoys this one, or your muscles are about to get a little stronger. But so I tweak right. What's been done. And I don't fully say, I think a problem in society today, or which has grown within society, is that people take what happened to them as a child in a disciplinary action, no matter what it is, and they say, well, my parents spanked me and they hit me and they did this, and so I refuse to hit my children. Okay, well then what are you doing to discipline them? Because they still need guidance somehow, and there's still consequences. And so if you change it to where it's a teaching thing and you're using it to guide them, then there's not a problem with that. But when you remove it completely, then that's when you end up with kids that become adults that don't have respect. They've got no morals, no values. They are entitled. They think that they can do whatever they want. There's no consequences for right. any of their actions, because they don't think before they act. They don't think before they speak, and I think that that's one thing that I realized is like, well, I'll just look at what was done to me. I'll find the blessing. I'll find the good. I'll find this, and I will tweak it. I'll pray about it. How do you want me to do this, God? Or how should I do this? Or, and a lot of the time I pray and I just say, hey, help me to be the mom that you need me to be for her, because God's got a specific purpose for her. I don't know what that is.
Right.
But in order for me to raise her correctly, I need his help on what he needs me to do. Not what do I need to do to be the best mom, but what do you need me to do to be what you need me to be for her? And then in turn, that's what does I end up being who he needs me to be as well.
I remember growing up, like when you talk back to your parents, like you get spanked or get the wooden spoon. Like my younger sisters, my mom would give them Tabasco sauce every time they talk back or something. But it happened so much with my one sister that she was like, it doesn't even bother him anymore. It was almost like comical, where as we get older now, we just laugh at hot sauces. But it's one of those things where I think there's so many kids today that need that spanking, or even adults today that need to get slapped. Or and I know, so I don't know a couple of years ago, Adrian Peterson, the Hall of Fame football player, like prolific running back, he got in trouble by the media and whoever because he came out and spanked his kids. And so many people in society, this isn't about parents hitting their kids. We're not talking abuse here. We're talking about culturally, that's how he was raised, and that's how he wanted to raise his kids. And when people don't understand that cultural aspect or that type of upbringing, they go out of the way to look at someone like you and be like, well, why are you hitting your daughter? Why are you spanking her? Why are you doing that? It's like that you're a terrible parent. It's like you're not a terrible parent. It's like that lack of understanding, I think, is so conducive to not letting parents be parents. And I don't know, it's the whole thing is very fascinating to me. Obviously, I know there's parents out there, as you know, that are abusive, which is a problem.
Yes. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying be abusive. There's a difference between being abusive and disciplining.
Right.
And, and there's times that, she wasn't getting spanked for the longest time. And then suddenly she was like, she's starting to push the line a little bit on certain things. And I was like, do I need to bring this back? And she's like, no, ma'am, or I would just look at the switch. She'd be like, I apologize. And I'm like, do you really apologize, or are you just reacting because you don't want that? Right. And so it got brought back because it was just words to her at that time. And so now she's starting to understand, as she has gotten a little bit older, that, oh, I need to be genuine. Like, I really do need to be apologetic for this, and I always tell her, you apologize. Don't be sorry. You're not a sorry person. Just apologize for what you did, and then do your best to change it and be better next time, because you're all going to make mistakes. And I explained to her a lot that, I did the same thing. I got in trouble. I made mistakes. I did the same thing. She's like, you did? And I think that helps a lot for her, because she realizes that there's no shame. She's not shamed. She's not embarrassed. It's like, everybody messes up. There was only one person that was perfect, and that was Jesus. Everybody else has problems. Everybody's got situations. Nobody else is perfect, right? So it's okay. You're gonna mess up, and you'll just do your best the next time. Make an effort. Say, oh, this is what happened last time. I don't want that to happen again. So she's extremely intelligent. So when she plays like she's not, she gets in trouble. So
it is, for me, like, is being a parent for you the toughest job you've had to done so far in your life, especially in this day and age where kids aren't learning about honor, respect, and integrity, and how to love someone. It's more now. I mean, now these kids are being put in classrooms where you can't do a national anthem. God forbid you mention God, or now we're going to learn about history, but we're going to censor parts of history. It's like, you as the parent, and it's one of my biggest fears once I become a dad. How do you lead your kids by example, but when you're not there all the time, they're being swayed by these outside forces and stuff? Like, how do you put them in a position to be the most successful?
So for me, it's what she's exposed to here at home. First, I homeschool. And it starts early on before that. So, you know, there's no tablets, there's no phones, there's no electronics. She watches old school stuff. Like she watches the wholesome, anything that's like, you know, anything that's not of our age, you know, and stuff. So she's, you know, she loves Little House on the Prairie. She loves Andy Griffith is a great one. She loves, you know, I expose her to things, and then I expose her to stuff also, and that might be contradicting, and I say, this is what's wrong with that, or this is, and I teach her. And I read Bible stories to her from the very beginning. You know, we prayed from the very beginning. You start instilling those values and those morals from the very beginning, so they are natural. She has no problem walking up to somebody being like, Jesus loves you, or singing Jesus loves me, or hugging somebody, and they're just like, what in the world? And that light shines through. And so when somebody is not like that, she, you know, is quick to say, well, let's pray for them. Or I'll be like, hey, let's pray for that person. And she'll be like, okay. And so it's the things that I do with her to solidify that. And so when something goes outside, so for example, we'll be in the store and she will see a kid, or will hear a kid like screaming or throwing a tantrum, or the mom seems like, oh my gosh, you know, and I'll point that out. I'll say, do you see that? And she's like, yeah. I said, is that acceptable behavior? And she's like, no. And I said, now, do you see why I tell you this? And she's like, yes, ma'am. So I'll point that stuff out, you know. Awesome example right here. So we had, she was, I want to say 4. She was 4. And we were across the street at the neighbor's house, and they had another 4-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I was not in the room. The mother of the children was outside cooking. And so the kids were getting ready to sit down and eat. And they had a camera that was in the house for security reasons. And they caught on camera, Neela, my daughter, was sitting, where was she? She was sitting across on one side of the living room. The youngest child, the 3-year-old, came over and they had a little conversation. And she had one of those, you remember those slap bracelets, yes, right? It's like you slap it on there and stuff. Well, they had one of those. And so they're like sitting there in their little babble talk about it. And as they're talking, the older sister sees their interaction and is like, what's going on? And you see her stand up, and then the little sister, the 3-year-old, goes and does her own thing. Neela's sitting there playing, and the older sister comes up and she goes, she looks, and Neela says, oh, look at my toy. She says the same thing. And the little girl looks at Neela and says, give it to me. And my daughter looks at her and says, no, it's for mine, right? Like if you, in their house, if you had a toy, it was yours until you put it down. And so, which I feel creates problems when you do that. So she goes, and the little girl looks at my daughter and snatches it out of her hands, and like in a way of that literally would have translated to an adult saying, bitch, I said, give that to me type thing, right? So she snatched it out of her hands and turned around and walked away. And my daughter stands there and goes, it's for mine, and like yells and walks over to the girl, and she happened to drop the toy. So as she bent down to pick it up, Neela, my daughter, snatches her hoodie and pulls her down to the ground, and in one, like not even missing a beat, pulls her down, and her other hand comes straight over and a hammer fist down on her, and just is like boom. And she takes the toy back and she's like, it's for mine. And so she stood up for herself, and I was okay with that. However, after that, she looks down at the girl, and then she kicks her twice, and then turns around and walks away. So of course, everybody's up in arms, like, oh my gosh, da, 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 da. And I was like, first and foremost, if those roles were reversed, you would not be this upset. You're just mad because your daughter was being a bully and mine stood up for herself. Like, bullies are never going to go away. So learn to stand up for yourself so the bully will back away, because bullies don't like to be confronted.
Right.
So they're never going to go away. And that's what they taught their daughter, basically, to be a bully a lot of the times. And so when that happened, I took the video and I showed Neela and I said, okay, let's sit down and let's look at this. I said, she should not have done this. She's being a bully. This is what a bully is. And then I broke it down even further. And as she walked away, I said, right here, you were okay. You were defending yourself. You were standing up for yourself. You got the toy back, and that was it. Right. And then I showed her where she kicks her. And I said, look at your face. I said, you looked at her and you thought about it and said, she's mean to me, so now I'm going to be mean to her. So now you have become the bully and you kick her just to be mean. I said, that is not okay. And so I taught her that. I said, and if the roles were reversed and you snatched it and she did this, I would say the same thing. Now, come to the other parents. I asked them, I said, well, did you show Leilui the video? No, why would we do that? Like, well, why not? She was in the wrong. And this is where she was wrong. So why did you not show it to her and use it as a teaching moment? And I think that's where a lot of parents, like, that's something I do. Why not? People, I think, try to protect their kids so much. Kids are super smart and they see a lot more, they hear a lot more than what you give them credit for. And they sense things too. So why would you not use that as a teaching moment? Was it a horrible thing that happened? Yes, just like anything else, but use it as take it and use it as a positive then.
Right.
And use it as a teaching moment. How can we not do this again? And for Neela, it's one of those things that's like, look, this is where you were right. You stood up for yourself. This is where you were wrong. So now she understands what a bully is, where her line is supposed to be drawn, what not to do. And then she can remember that feeling. Okay, when I get to here, this is not okay. Or up to this point, this is fine. Anything beyond that, the roles have now reversed and now I'm in trouble. So why not use it as a teaching moment? So those are some of the things that I do.
When your daughter gets older and she approaches you, hey, Mom, I'd love to do the Marine Corps, join the military. Are you going to sit her down and talk to her about a lot of stuff you've talked about in some of your other talks, whether it's PTSD or the assault you dealt with or the harassment, I guess? Stuff like that's happened in your military career, and as a female to another female, is there a part of you being a mom where you're kind of like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Or are you going to be like, hey, think about this. If you want to do it, I'll support you. If you don't want to do it, I'll still support you. Like, where are you at with it? As she gets older, that time is going to come.
I would encourage it. I think everybody should do serve. I don't care if it's 4 years, 8 years. I would probably suggest her to do 8 years. Be like 4 years. Do whatever the Marine Corps wants you to do, and then the last 4 years, use that time to for education or something else or whatever, and then just kind of hone it. And at the end of that second enlistment, decide, okay, do I want to stay in or do I want to get out? Like, I've experienced the Marine Corps in the first 4 years. I volunteered for things, I did things, I went places, and I did all of this, and then the second enlistment, I really just kind of, okay, I did everything the Marine Corps wanted me to. I'm at a higher rank now. Let me start to see where I want to go, get some school in. Do I want to do that? Do I not? Like, and then just kind of see, am I going to make it a career, or am I going to use this so that way when I get out, I've already gone to some school. I can, you know what I mean? Like, just that
Right.
type of thing. However, I will sit her down and unlike me, I went in unknowing. Like, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how things were. And at the time when I went in, I was like right at that cusp where it was like, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. I was taught, it doesn't matter if you're male or female. This is your rank and you're going to be expected to do this job. And everybody needs to know, like, it across the board, you're going to be held accountable. It's not, oh, you're a girl or you're a female and you get preferential treatment or different treatment, or you're a male and this is how they're going to know. It's across the board. Like, get your head out of your ass, make sure that you can do your 20 pull-ups, make sure you can do that. And that's the way I was taught, and stuff. Especially at MCT. Like, I'm very thankful for the instructors that I had at MCT. And I would sit down with her though, and I would, the relationship that I have with her, even at a very young age, is very open and honest. If she asks me a question, I tell her the truth to her level, and I will explain things at her level so that she understands. When she's had questions in the past about the abusiveness, or she's heard me say it or something, or I remember we got a manila envelope in the mail and I was super upset, and I tried my best to like not cry in front of her. But she could see that I was upset. And then she got out of the truck, and I sat there. Once she was out, I sat there and I cried for a minute, and she came back and she goes, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Oh, nothing." You try to do that protective thing that I always said I would do. I was like, "No," I was like, "Nothing, don't worry about it." Because I didn't know how to say it at the time. And I needed to process really quick. And she goes, she wouldn't take that for an answer. And so she kept pressing. She's me to a T. She's apple. We're apple. Marcus says apple tree. You guys are an apple tree, right? So fully. And she kept going. And I was like, well, there's just something in the manila envelope that's very upsetting, and it just made me sad. And it was just, it's upsetting to me and stuff. And she goes, "Well, is it from this person?" And I said, "Yes." I'm not going to lie. I said, "Yes." And she goes, "Oh," and she got so mad and she started shaking. She goes, "I hate him." And I stopped her right there. And I said, "No."
Yep.
So we do not hate like that. I said, "It is not okay." I said, "I have forgiven him. I'm continuously forgiving him. And this is my abuser that I'm talking about." And and I said, "You don't need to hate him." I said, "You have a father. Your father is God. That is who your father is. And he will provide an earthly father made in his image for you." I said, "But there is no reason to hate him at all." I said, "He doesn't exist to us. He does not have any, God's protecting us." I said, God will be victorious over this. And there's no need to be angry or hate. Or there's no need to hate him. I said, "You can be angry, you can be upset, but then you need to let it go and you need to forgive, and we will move forward." And she stopped and she said, "Okay." But she saw me and she was like, "Oh, well, Mom's not hateful." Because that just festers and that grows. Right. And what I told her was the truth. You just because this is the person whose DNA happened to help create you, doesn't mean that they're a father. It doesn't mean that they are your father. It doesn't mean that they're your dad. It doesn't mean anything. Like, I could have gone to a sperm bank and gotten artificially inseminated, and they have nothing, right? So it's the same concept. But I have always taught her that she's not fatherless, because she's not. She has a father, a heavenly father. That is my father. That's her father. So she's not left out. And she makes Father's Day cards. It's for God. Happy Father's Day. We celebrate Jesus's birthday. Happy birthday, Jesus. So he is, and I always tell her, I said, "It's me, you, and God, kid. It's me, you, and God. And when when he's ready to provide somebody for us, then he will provide somebody made in his image for us. And that will be our earthly family, but he'll still be our father. He's still your father, And sometimes she'll randomly, something will pop up, or I don't know what. God works in great ways, and I find it very interesting to watch. But she'll just randomly say, "Oh, my dad's in heaven," right? And they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss." And she's like, "No, he's not dead. It's God." They're like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, my dad is God." And they're like, "Oh." And she's gone through her phases where she's like, I want a real dad, and then there's times where she's just like, "No, I'm good with it just being us. We're having fun and it's great. This person is like a father figure, and this person is a father figure, and they're godly people, and they instill, um, the right things and everything." So, yeah, and that kind of touches back on that other question that
Right.
you had asked about it who you have around to influence your children as well. Like there's things that my mom does that I'm like, no, ma'am, that's the no-go. She came to the house one day and Neela was playing with something and she was like, "Ew." And I stopped her. I said, "Nope." And she goes, "What?" I said, "There's no ewing in this house. We do not ew at anything. We ooh, fascinate. What is that? Hey, let's check it out. Like if it's a
Right.
bug, there's no ewing. I know. If it's poop from the dog, it's not ew. It's, oh, the dog pooped, clean it up. Like there is like, why am I going to ew at that? It's going to happen. How many times out of the day the dog's going to do it?
Yeah.
So why am I going to ew over it? And ew, it's great. No, I mean it's nature. It happens. So go
Yeah.
clean it up and keep it moving in your life, kid. Like let's go. So um so yeah, who you have around your kids too
Right.
is very important.
I've had other guests on here who military career. You're the first female military guest, but when I've had the military men on, um, one of the things talking man to man is always like the stigma of asking for help, whether it's directions in a car or hey, I need help with my drinking, or I need help. I have PTSD for whatever I've done, or I'm having these bad thoughts. I need a mental health day. And hearing you talk about it, you've been open before. Some of the stuff you've done, talks and some
Hmm.
movies you've done about when you walked into your therapist, the one therapist, and you said, "I don't want to be here, but I need to be here." Like this honesty about asking for help and being the first step in the process of healing is having the courage to ask for help. And I guess I never looked at it this way. Hearing you talk, where it's like even females in the military have a stigma of asking for help, and it's like if you could kind of touch upon that because it's so. I guess I never looked at it that way. I've always been like man to man. Like I get why guys don't ask for help because they don't want to look weak, but here you are, a successful ass kicker, well trained military person that dedicated your life to that, and you still did feel like you could ask for help, and it took you a while to get there. If you could kind of talk about that.
Um, so in the service, it's not that you, so you're taught to not really ask for help because the mission, right? So it's not necessarily don't ask for help because you're going to be weak. It's mission essential. Like get your head on straight, figure it out. Let's go. We got other things to do. And so figure out how you're going to process it on your own later, or later sometimes never comes because depending on where you're at. And when you're deployed and you're in a combat zone like that, later might come 5 years down the road, because you finally have stopped and had time to decompress. But now you have to decompress from the compilation of people that you've lost or the things that have happened or the different things that have affected you and stuff. And so I believe that, it's like, hey, suck it up, keep pushing, like just keep going. That mindset is a necessity to a degree while you are in. And when you get out, it's not really, how do you put this? So, okay, you go to boot camp, right? So you go to boot camp for 3 months in the Marine Corps and less for other services. But the point of boot camp is to strip away who you were and build you up to the branch of service that you joined so you can function for them. Now, when you get out, you get a week. There is no breaking it down and
Yeah.
saying, here you go, let's get you ready to reassimilate and this and that, or get you this and that. Like, there is none of that. You get a week, and it's, here are a bunch of things for you. Here are some programs, here are some things, but you have to reach out to them. And sometimes you're just, it's all very overwhelming. You're like, okay, well, I'll try this. And then maybe in trying that triggers something that you didn't realize that you hadn't dealt with, or you try it and then you realize, oh my gosh, can't work with civilians because they move so slow and this is crazy, right? So you're like, but and then it's just a process. There's a process to get in, and then the process when you get out is completely different. And then the process while you're in, it was frowned upon to seek that help. So there, or they didn't allow the time to seek that help. And sometimes there's not time to do that. So I think if they were to look at it and say, okay, well, we need decompression means decompression. So does anybody need to go talk to somebody? And it's okay if you do, even if it's just 5 minutes, or even if it's just an event, and say, this is completely stupid, I don't want to do this, and then be done with it. But I think that because we are taught to not speak about anything, it while you're in, we're taught that because it's more so mission essential to be able to keep pushing. Because if every time something negative happened and you were to have a meltdown, or I need to go talk to somebody, you're like, are you kidding me right now? Like, you're messing up like my timeline. Like and when you're in, like, things are on a timeline for a reason, because if they don't happen in a timely manner and you get lackadaisical and complacent, that kills. And it kills in so many ways. And for example, I had a junior Marine that was being very lazy, and I had told him to go do something. He did it on his own time. And so I had to use the example. I said, hey, what happens when you're deployed? A mortar hits the generator, knocks out all the power. I tell you to go grab something, but you're taking your sweet behind time doing it. And now the whole time that this power is down, you're supposed to be getting the backup generator up so you can get the power up to the COC. The COC is in charge of all the little game pieces on the board. And so what happens to that platoon out there that needs to get air support, or they need some form of support, but they can't get it because they can't get a hold of what's going on back here. And we don't see who's where and what's going on, all because you wanted to jack off and not listen because you're pissy. Get your head out of your ass, dude. Yep. I don't care. So you have that mentality, and it's necessary in certain situations. However, when you come back and there is downtime and there is an opportunity to go in and say, hey, I might need, like, I need to go to medical once a week, for 30 minutes, I have to talk to, or the chaplain is available, yeah. But there are places to talk. And I say that even having a negative experience with it, but I tried. The chaplain was worthless for me. But it was also with the command too. Like, they didn't care. So if they're not going to care and there's no resources, then you just shove it down some more and stuff. So for me, I went through about eight therapists before I finally was like, okay. But I knew it got to a point to where I was self-medicating, and I was like, I don't want to do it, but what I'm doing obviously is not working. And that time frame comes different for everybody. And I was just tired of being in pain all the time, one way or another. And I finally went in, as frustrated as I was. I went in. I had one therapist that actually told me to lower my voice once, and I went off. I was like, what? She's like, well, I don't want them to think. And I was like, listen, dude, like, that's not cool. And prior to that, she had said, oh, we're going to have to cut our session short because I have to do payroll or something. And I was like, what? And so I have a bad stigma with, like, vet centers because of that now. I'm like, somebody's like, go to a vet center. I'm like, screw you. They're like, you know. But if that were something that had to happen, then obviously I'd be like, oh, I gotta, like, let me at least just go and attempt, you know, and see what happens. Not all vet setters are the same, you know. I have to remind myself of that. And but I did. I went back and I found one, and she happened to be pregnant and was about to go on maternity leave, and I didn't know it. And so she had this young therapist came in. She was all smiles. She came in and she was like, "Hi, so nice to meet you," and da 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 da. And you know, I got to give props to those the therapists that work at the VA, you know, the counselors, because they put up with so much from us. They really do. Like, God bless them. But I went to see her the next time, and I walked in the office, and I was just like, "I don't like you. I don't want to be here, but I know I need to be here." And so, yeah. But I told her I didn't like her. And she was like, "Well, I know." I said, "You're too smiley, you're too happy, you're too this." But those are everything that I wasn't, right? And so she is my favorite therapist to this day. She didn't take offense to it. Her facial expression didn't change. And we just went right along. And, you know, she's like, "Well, why don't you think that it's important?" I said, "Well, it's pointless." I said, I felt, myself, I felt it was pointless. I said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to sit here, I'm going to talk about it. We're not going to be able to solve anything," right? Because in my head, if you're going to talk about something, you need to solve it and then be done with it. But that's not the way counseling works. It's baby steps, and you don't realize that when you first get started, because you're so angry, you're so hurt, you're so frustrated, and you're so closed off, and you've got walls built up around you, and that takes time to chip away at. And you know, you just have to you learn to embrace, okay, this is how I feel now. And then you realize, okay, if I need to call her and say, "Hey, that session was really hard, and now I'm having, like, I want to drink, or I want to do this," or, you know, if you wanted to. And I do know that in that, with that therapist, I had a workbook that I was supposed to do, and I never did it. I refused to write things out because it made it real. And I was just like, "This is stupid. I don't want to do this." Right. And, but we would talk about it the next day. So whatever it was, I just didn't write it out, but I was able to speak about it. So at least I did say stuff, which she accepted. And then I think it was the night before not the night before, but like right before our last session, I was at home, and it was just me at the time and stuff. And I got super, super wasted at home by myself. And I wrote on that first page, I answered all those questions. And it was just everything, like all the pain, all the hurt, because I was drunk. And I just wrote it out, and I took it in with me, and I said, "Hey, I did that first page." And she said, "Good job." There was no judgment. There was no condemnation. There was no, "Okay, now do the next one. What about this one?" Good job. You took a step. It doesn't, like, and then we talked about some of it. If I wanted to, if I didn't, then I didn't. But the way that she went about it, and there was no, "You need to do this," or "You need to do that." It was, you know, she just would ask certain questions to make me think. And I was like, "Oh, all right, well, this is what that meant," or, you know, and it helped. And then, you know, I started, you know, I'd call when I needed her, if I needed her, and stuff like that. So, and then we had like a plan in place. And then, so that way, if I needed anything, I would be able to, and I didn't feel completely alone, but I didn't feel like I was being completely dependent on somebody else for what I needed to do as well. So, and oftentimes there's a part of it that men don't realize, is that because there are far fewer women in the service, that a lot of the times there's a lot that goes into that. You got to be careful, because they have spouses or girlfriends, and they get jealous, they get mad. I've been told that I can't call some of my combat buddies because their wives are like, "Psh," you know, "No." And in a way, the hurtful part is not that the wife said that. The hurtful part is that they don't have a spine to be like, this is what this means. This is what it is. So a lot of the times guys can call a buddy any hour, 24/7. It does not matter whether they're married or single. It doesn't matter. And they can call in any state of mind. Females, it's few and far in between. And you might have that person that says that you can do that, but then there's always, for me anyway, there's still that reservation to actually utilize that, because you don't want to create a rift. You don't want to have a problem. And so you'll wait a little bit and be like, oh, well, I'll call during these hours. I had my brother was one whose wife understood, and she is a blessing. And so I literally, that was the one person that I could. He passed away recently. So there's been feelings recently of like, there is like, I would normally call him and there is not that. So there's things that I've been working through just recently with stuff pertaining to that as well. Right. And everything, but there's not as many for females. There's a lot that there's not as many of us. And then I think that when you have a different mindset as a female too, there's even fewer that have a certain mindset that you would be willing to talk to, you know, and because their mindsets are different and everything. So
right.
There's a lot that goes into that.
We've talked kind of about respect a bunch, and when it comes to professional female sports, outside of, say, MMA, where female fighters headline stadiums, arenas around the world, and there's like this insane amount of respect. But sometimes when you watch like the WNBA or so whether even like the female Olympic sports or World Cup stuff, or it's almost like this weird sense of, well, it's not the men, so why do I have to watch? And it's like I love watching like the Sue Bird sisters in the WNBA, Taurasi, Rebecca Lobo growing up. It's like I've always loved athletes, whether it's man or woman. If you're really good at what you do, I'm going to support you. But it seems like today it's like unless you're a male with 14 endorsements, a shoe or whatever, who cares about the female who's just as equally talented? Does that ever rub you the wrong way, especially because you are a professional fighter and you play professional football?
The part that's frustrating is when they change the female sport, then that's when it's hard, because they're like, well, you changed it. You know, the ball is a different size, or you got different rules. Like, just play the sport.
Right.
You're all win. So right now there's the WNFC, right? OJ Jenkins, she got that started a few years back, and it's the closest thing to the NFL, and they're thriving. They've got Adidas endorses them, Rydell endorses them. They've got a platform to be able to watch and stuff and everything. She's worked really hard at doing that, but there's not a real big, the only difference really is that we're women and they're men, and we don't have as much experience, right? Because growing up, guys play football from a small point. However, that has started to change. And little girls, like my daughter, will wear a dress, put cleats on, and go throw a football and run a football and hit and everything else, right? But she also has been growing up watching me do that. And I'm still, you know, you're still able to do that and still be feminine, you know? You're still able to, I think a lot of people are realizing that it's not just a butch thing to do, or they're trying to be a guy. I think when you try to be like the men, that's where you run into the problems. But if you just embrace that, the sports that embrace, no, we are women, but this is the sport that we're playing, it seems to thrive a lot better. And even the sports that seem to thrive better, if they start focusing too much on trying to be more like the guys, it's, if you notice, it does take a hit to the sport and the impact, because people don't really want to know about it. They just play.
Right.
Just like, how are you, and there's going to be the evolution as time goes on. It's going to evolve in everything, and stuff. Just like with fighting, I'm not going to fight a dude, right? It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't, oh, I bet you can't beat that dude. Well, guess what? Just because we're the same size, he's naturally going to be stronger than me. So why would I want to do that? For fun? Like,
Right.
no. I should be able, like, I have the ability to defend myself if there were ever come a time, like, I could actually, like, have a chance to survive a situation. But I'm not a guy, and so therefore I'm not going to fight a guy. That's not why. I didn't say that, hey, I'm stronger than him. Like, I would have to fight somebody that's like half my weight class, just for our strengths to, like, match up in that sense and stuff. Just be the best athlete that you can be and stuff. I mean, even in CrossFit's going on right now, CrossFit Games. To me, just won again for like the 6th time, right?
Yeah.
And so but it's amazing. But the weight that she lifts is still going to be different than the weight that one of her training partners lifts, and he could be the same weight and height and everything as her. He's just naturally stronger, but she's going to do what she's supposed to do, and he's going to do what he needs to do. And then they're going to go out there and they're going to perform their best, and everybody's going to love it because they maxed out what they could do as in their positions. And so it just, I think that when you try to change it too much, to be like, oh, well, here we have to, I know that back in the day, basketball, for me, it's hard for me to watch women's basketball just because I think they pass the ball way too much. For me, and women's soccer is not hard for me to watch, because they're just as aggressive as the guys, if not more.
More
right?
so.
Usually more so, actually, So it's the same thing. If I watch football, like, I watch good plays in the NFL, and I can watch some amazing plays in the WNFC right now, right? Like, there are people within women's football are now getting better training than when I first started out. My explanation of being a defensive end was get the ball. Get off the line really fast and get the ball. And I was like, okay, and so that's what I did. I learned how to swim and I learned how to rip. That was it. It wasn't until, like 6 seasons later that I really started working on technique. And so once you start teaching, if you teach anybody, it doesn't matter male or female, it doesn't matter the sport, just like women wrestlers, you teach the athlete how to be the athlete and how to be the best athlete that they can be, then they're going to thrive and people are going to want to watch that. I think if you put too much emphasis on it's a male, it's a female, it's men's sports, let the athlete be the athlete, train them the way that they need to be an elite level athlete. And then those athletes that have that mindset, they always thrive and rise up, and they're the great ones to watch in any sport that you do and stuff. And I think that, Cyborg is a great example of that. Like, she's just, tossed off all the negativity that people have said about her and different things that have happened to her. And she puts all of her faith in God, and he's provided a way for her and stuff like that. But I mean, that woman works out relentlessly. Relentlessly. So if you're not going to put in that type of effort, I don't want to hear you talking about her and saying, oh, well, she's this and this. No, you don't know the hours that woman puts into the gym, and that and even in the off season, like, she's constantly training, and a lot of the greats, that's the part that you don't see. I was listening to somebody that says the other day, they were talking about Tiger Woods. It was an old podcast with Joe Rogan. I forget who he was talking to, but he was saying, are you willing to live that lifestyle that person lived to get to that level of greatness? Like it didn't just happen overnight,
Right.
you know, and stuff. And so it's, you know, you got to put in the work. And I think that no matter male or female, if you put in that work, whether that be, it just paves the way for the next generation, or you reap the fruits of that benefit at that point in time, I think that it will be recognized, male or female.
Before I let you go, I am curious, is it difficult for you to be known as a role model for someone, whether a girl or a guy, no one usually sets out to be a role model. You live your life, and if you live your life and people resonate with you and it impacts them in a positive way, I think that's beneficial. But for someone like you, my first time talking to you, I would consider you a role model, because not only hearing your story, but someone that gets it and is willing to put the time in to be better each day. And is it, when people approach you or send you a message, hey, like, I love your story, like, thank you, I need to hear this. At what point did you kind of realize that, hey, maybe my bigger service now is to others outside of my own life? And so is it ever weird for you like that?
It used to be, because I didn't think that I had a story. So when
Okay.
because to me, I didn't.
Right.
To me, these were just things that I did, and I
Part of your
tried
life.
to do them to the best of my ability. You know, gymnastics, Marine Corps, my childhood, you know, MMA, strongman, fitness competitions, you know, football, being a mom, like all of it. It's just like, okay. And right now, I feel like I don't have enough going on. Like I'm like, I need to do, like, I feel like I'm wasting away. I don't have like 5,000 things going on. I'm just on a different chapter of the journey, you know, and stuff. So that being said, it used to be weird for me because it used to be weird for me. What's up? No, you can't say hi. Okay, come say hi real quick.
All right.
Okay, go get yourself a milkshake. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So it used to be real weird for me, and then somewhere along the line, as my faith grew, actually, and as I built a foundation, and I come back to Christ, and
Yep.
really started building a foundation, and as my relationship grew with God, and I realized a pastor that I listened to had said, you know, be a living epistle, because a lot of people don't read the Bible or they don't know the Word of God. So the best way to lead somebody to believing or having faith or being that, just in, you know, leading somebody to Christ, is to be a living epistle. And I was like, oh, so it's not like you need to go talk to somebody and say, hey, this is this and you should do this. And like, that's all religious stuff. And that's, people feel condemned, and then they're like, well, I've had church hurt, or I don't want to, you know, and it's, or people are like, well, what am I supposed to say? I don't know how I'm supposed to do that, you know? And, but if you live a life, because people are going to do what you do more than what you say for them to do. Once I started praying, and I was like, help me to be a living epistle for others. The things that I've experienced, it wasn't, I think it was around that same time, I did the project that I sent you.
Yes, Lionheart.
The Lionhearted Project, yes. And they that was my first time really telling some of my story, and I was talking to another veteran, and so it was just like smooth conversation and stuff, and I listened to it, and I was just like, holy cow, I guess I have been through a lot of stuff. And at first it was like, if I can just help one person, you know, not struggle the way I did, then, you know, that would be great. And then I was like, well, maybe I really am able to be a light or be something for somebody else or be that example. And then that's when, a lot of the stuff was born out of that, when I came to realize that I was worth something, and that God does have a plan for me, and that I am a valuable original, and that even though I have struggles, and even though I have all this stuff that I went through in the past, whether it be challenges, turmoil, trauma, just different things, and I've overcome them. Some of them I still work through, and I'm still I'm overcoming them even more so because they take a little bit longer. But then I realized, I was just like, well, God help me to be a living epistle, and at first that was only in the form of like faith-based. And then I realized that it didn't just have to be that way. And I'm on this amazing journey as well in learning, and just as my faith grows and my intimate relationship with Christ grows, I'm realizing that I'm able to be that example. I'm able to be a living epistle. And so it does not bother me now. Now I just want to make sure that I'm doing the best that God needs me to do.
Right.
And that, I don't put too much pressure on myself to not screw it up, because I'm human. So, so it doesn't bother me now. And before it did, but I went through a process, a journey to come to that understanding that, there's lots of people, just like I look at people and I say, oh, wow, I needed to hear that piece of information today. And I say, thank you, God, for that piece of information. Or I had a question in my mind, and then I hear or see somebody and I'm like, oh, that's great. And then that gives me the strength to say, well, who cares if somebody that follows you might not like it? There might be that one person that comes across your page that needed to hear that. So don't censor that, or don't change who God's created you to be. Be that living epistle, be that, because somebody was that for you. So allow yourself to, you have been blessed to be a blessing in that way. So allow yourself to do that. And so now it brings me joy to be able, that if somebody's like, hey, that helped me, or that opened my eyes, or I appreciate you doing that, then I'm like, I'm glad that could happen. And then I give thanks to God for giving me the strength and the courage, and then for changing my want tos to his want tos, and just healing me. Because a lot of that, if I was still angry at it, that wouldn't have happened. So I've done a lot of forgiveness and a lot of healing and stuff. So for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for jumping on here with me today, Crystal. You have an incredible story. And if anyone wants to reach out to you, do we send them to your Instagram page? Like, where can people, if they have a question, they want to support you, they want to check what you're doing, where can we send people to check you out?
I'm on Instagram predominantly. I do have Facebook as well. Both of them, same names, Crystal Brolik Stokes. I think on Instagram it's just Brolik Stokes. But either one of those, they can reach me there, follow along, and see what's going on, all the adventures.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for this. We'll have to do it again. Be safe, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, thank you so much.
How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spear Talk. You might not know this, but before I record an episode, I like to break a sweat. And I do that using the Chop Fit. Over the course of the past year, the Chop Fit has allowed me to lose weight, tone up my body, and feel even more amazing about myself. A feeling that you should all feel about yourselves as well. If you use this code, SpearChop10, you get $10 off your order. Once again, use code SpearChop10 for $10 off your Chop Fit order. It'll change your life. Thank you.